Ready?
Check.
Boom, 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 boom.
All good?
Boom, 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 boom.
So I've got to start with, we were talking to Nate and Eric yesterday, and Nate brought up something really fascinating about like the first time Pedro, Elizabeth, the band members were brought in. You tested them. You had them play with you and make a choice in their life to either join the band or do whatever they're going to do. What was it about Pedro, Elizabeth, these groups of people that you wanted to bring into this fold?
Well, I mean, no, it was a little bit different. There wasn't any real. It was kind of a natural test of some kind, test of endurance and resilience and audacity. I guess. It was actually, for a while, the number of people in the band was uncertain. Like, I didn't know how many people is in the band because some people would just turn up for one gig and not turn up for the other. Of course, there's a core and a band, but there was always, like, for example, Ori. He was from jazz, avant-garde jazz scene in New York City, and he kind of basically just turned up for a gig and for a rehearsal, and then was like, so am I in? Or I was like, well, your guess is as good as mine, you know. And and several years later, he started his own project, Balkan Beatbox, and just vanished just like that too. So Pedro also, there was no really a day when Pedro joined the band. He started rapping and jumping on stage here and there, and it was kind of this. There was not there was no really any kind of real auditions.
Just brought them on.
That's what I kind of always tell people, is that it's not. Gogol Bordello has probably at this point become known as a band, but it's not really a band. It's more like a typhoon. It's more like a community of people that appears in a certain way, draws certain. It brings very certain kind of people together.
How have you been able to maintain? I mean, you guys, 99 was the first album, but I mean, you guys have been rocking for so long. I'm curious, how do you maintain you?
Well, once again, it brings together a particular kind of people that have manic energy about them, and a certain degree of resilience and stamina. It's kind of, I mean, in our case, a lot of those, all those new age kind of books about that law of attraction kind of thing, we could illustrate that actually, as dubious as some of those books are, but in a nutshell, there is a certain, what you're seeking seeks you, that's there, and I think that characters that wouldn't have those qualities just wouldn't even be attracted to the whole Gogol Bordello music in the first place. They would be nowhere near in our vicinity, And I think that's also the secret, so-called secret ingredient of Gogol Bordello, is that newness. I mean, it was set up like that. It was from the very beginning a core of band with a kind of revolving door aspect to it, so that gives all of us, everybody who comes, you'd be surprised how much one even guest performer can alter the synergy, and it's like people who tune fine sound systems, they'll tell you, you can have everything perfectly in tune and then just turn one of the dozen of amps a little bit this way and the whole fucking place sounds different. It's a fact. It's the same with the band. It just, people bring in things that are, transform. And those transformations allow for newness for the people who've been there for a long time. And it's kind of like, a lizard that's constantly growing new tail, and it's kind of how we like it. So that way, it never got stale in any sense. And I mean, nobody ever saw Gogol Bordello twice. Yeah. It's you saw it on one tour, the next tour we came, and there was always something distinctly different about it, while being still that gypsy punky party,
Do you mind if I ask about an upcoming tour? You've got the
absolutely.
UK tour, literally less than a month now, a couple weeks away, before obviously going home to New York. I feel like New York's your main second home.
Yeah.
You talk about the UK tour, what people can expect from this.
First of all, we love UK, and GB loves GB, that whole thing has been going on for a while. And, especially, perhaps you're aware of that whole New York-London ping pong, cultural ping pong that has been going on forever, that when a band from New York City goes to London, gets their hype up and comes back home, comes back to New York as something very, very, very explosively hip. It's just happened to so many bands, and it's the same thing happened with us. It's almost, we're no exception, because we played New York for about 3 years. And after our first gig in London and Tate Modern Gallery, we were playing places that were like 4 times bigger than the places before, And so there's that. So we always have a soft spot for UK, And this time it's in particular emphasis on solidarity with UK punk rock movement, because we're going back with UK. We're going there with a special release featuring Bernard Sumner from obviously New Order and Joy Division, which is a kind of a very meaningful, extremely meaningful for me, collaboration with a absolutely brilliant and masterful pioneer of art punk and beyond. Because it's a collaboration that's dedicated to the unity, to the solidarity with people of Ukraine, and all the people, all the oppressed and terrorized and uprooted people throughout the world. It seems like there's more and more of them now. And it's a cover of a legendary anthem of Angelic Upstarts, a British punk band that was originally dedicated to the workers of Poland breaking away from a Soviet dictatorship in 1981. So, we created this version of a song that's very, it has all the enzymes and vitamins of Gogol Bordello and New Order in it. And Bernard did amazing mixing, amazing arrangement for this song. So there's that, and it's a kind of a tribute to British punk rock being so involved in these really heavy issues with war in Ukraine now, And and previously back then, Poland, supporting Poland and its breakaway,
In the film, we get to see you got to go home and be there with the soldiers. I'm curious, with what's going on, has it changed you as a musician, as a person, seeing what's going on now?
I think it probably changed everybody to some extent because, everybody was kind of living in this loopy delusion for a couple decades, as if all those things that, never again things, they're kind of gone and buried and they're never coming back. But here they are. I mean, look at the world right now. It's completely full of all those atrocities that supposedly were never going to happen again. So I think everybody is shaken up a bit. I wouldn't say everybody because, a good amount of people. But, it's just people are designed in such a way that, unless a brick falls on their head directly or on the head of their closely loved one, they don't wake up that easy. But I think there's just enough bricks are falling on people's heads, and people are picking up some slack, and, they're going to have to find a way with themselves to defend some principles. Yeah. Because this whole kind of selective activism is kind of a very, interesting thing to observe, where people become suddenly very concerned about genocide in one part of the planet, while 2 hours over, genocide has been going on forever, and everybody's just totally fine about that. Yeah. So, what do you say to that? What is their activism worth? Maybe that activism is just not fully activated.
I'm curious. Nate said something to me that really stuck with me. He said that you grew up as running track, and it helped you with your physicality. Yeah. But it also stuck with you about keeping going. You've never stopped being you. I'm curious. Is that always when are you gonna ever stop? Do you feel you can?
Well, I mean, it's a bit of exaggeration. It's not it's a mythology. I think that I'm also not a very, sport interested person. I'm not, So, but in the childhood, I actually just took it as some kind of personal discipline kind of thing. And I think I did have some extra above average energy to burn, perhaps. So, I get inspired by some people in my family. My uncle, who ran numerously marathon, and I kind of, since age 6, 7, I started hanging out with him and doing a lot of running. So, of course, I ended up on the team for the city and all that, and going into hardcore training for a decade afterwards, basically. When all the kids, from my school were basically sleeping on Sunday till noon, I was out on the fucking sticks, huffing and puffing, doing 15 kilometers cross in a freezing ass Ukrainian winter, in the woods, with my team. But one way or another in this life, you're gonna have to find a way of disciplining yourself, because if you don't bring it into focus and don't hyper focus and don't stay in your lane with your focus, then the world is gonna crucify you. There's a lot of things going on that emotionally are tearing people apart, and in a way, it's a form of meditation, and with things like meditation, you always have to be careful, because it's just some of the language just turns people off. They don't ever want to do it as soon as you even mention it, because it has this like aura of this irrelevancy and something that's just so booted out and not really for people who are walking the real streets. But it is, and meditation doesn't need to be something that's so tedious. It can be a particular practice that keeps you in focus. For me, through those years, the discipline that helped me to really help me with music later. Just having that work ethic as a musician all comes from there, I think, too.
And your shows are pretty kick-ass. It's one of the most exciting movement shows ever.
Thank you. They're pretty athletic, I suppose, in a certain sense, yeah.
What does it mean to have the film play here in Minneapolis, a music town, at a festival that is here to showcase music, and then we're going to get to have you play right after? Like, it's going to be a special night. I'm curious, what do you feel about it?
Minneapolis, First Avenue has been our, I have quite a bit of sense of homecoming about that particular venue. We've been playing here, regularly, and it's always a complete, uncompromising hoedown, So, in places like New York, where I live, or closer to New York, I get to go and do more chamber things sometime, and do an acoustic set here and there, more or less regularly. So I have that outlet there. Here, this is first time that kind of outlet, which is really actually an inseparable part of Gogol Bordello. I mean, it kind of, here's the thing. Gogol Bordello, when I was starting the band, I was, I'm kind of known as a guy, singer-songwriter with an acoustic guitar. Wow. That's kind of like how people mostly really see Gogol Bordello. It kind of starts from there, and it does. But in a way, I picked up acoustic guitar then for first time. Up until then, I was going absolutely ham for a decade playing in punk and hardcore bands. And this was a very new chapter, kind of post-punk, post-hardcore, post-everything, new page of some kind of gypsy sympho-punk or whatever, however you want to describe it. So this page of just having very storytelling material that is just scaled down only to a guitar and to the pure essence of the song was a very, very new thing for me at that time. And it's a blueprint of everything that grew out of it, but without understanding it. It's like Gogol Bordello appreciation is never full. So for me to go out there and play these songs, just like bring that clean slate vibe back, I think is important to share that with people, that aspect of it.
You walked in here so badass earlier with just your guitar and your backpack. Did you get on the plane like that?
Yes.
Just wanted to know. I was curious. I was like, what a badass way to walk in there. You don't even forget the guitar case. You're here.
Well, I mean, guitar case makes it to be kind of too big and impossible to easily maneuver around some things, like this is just kind of really easy. I don't have to wait for it to come out from the luggage and nothing. I just pick it up and go.
That was just an image we had of you walking in. I thought it was great. Thought it was
the usual.
Yeah, I thought it was Eugene. It was perfect. Do you mind if I ask about when you named this band? There's so much meaning to Gogol and Ukrainian, Russian, who views what and how it all is viewed in his work. Has the name of your band changed in your mind through the decades of time?
Well, no. It's solidified, and there's nothing to change. I mean, you're talking about the Russian propagandistic idea that Gogol is a Russian writer. He's not. He's a Ukrainian writer who was born in Ukraine and who made a name for himself writing about distinctly Ukrainian subjects. You know, Ukrainian mythology, Ukrainian folklore. His father was a writer from Ukraine who wrote for a local theater, Vertep. And, you know, in fact, in his diaries, you will find that, you know, his whole idea was just kind of to smuggle Ukrainian culture into which was forbidden at that time. You know, what else is fucking new? Which was forbidden at that time in a Russian empire. His idea was to smuggle that culture in, and that's exactly how it got perceived, as something so drastically different from a bland, you know, Muscovite product, you know. And that was his whole thing. I mean, he wrote using Ukrainian syntaxis, the melodism. He was an expert on Ukrainian songs. He wrote essays on that. So it's a rather silly idea. I mean, that he was some kind of. It's even ironic how you know Russian propaganda tries to use it. You know, his last work, Dead Souls, as some kind of a great tribute to Russia. It's not. It's a big fuck you to Russia. It's literal. There's not a one positive character in that book. Everyone is some kind of a failed individual. It's a deck of cards of failed individuals. So, I don't know. I think it's pretty self-evident what he meant.
It's gained strength even. You've given us a voice that maybe wasn't there prior, sadly. I'd love to end with just asking about, you know, with UK tour, with New York, is there, what's next? What can we keep track of? I know there was a new album, but I'm curious as far as like the next steps for you.
Well, there's a bunch of things. The thing is probably that was most immediately on my, you know, that I'm very, very busy with on daily right now is that all my friends who run record labels told me never start a label, and here I am doing exactly that. You know, I mean, I had a Gogol Bordello, Casa Gogol record label for a number of years now, but it's activated in full strength. So I'm releasing records of new New York City artists, and that I believe in. And I mean, Lord knows New York City never runs dry on talent. So. And that's also a very exciting thing for me. You know, I mean, I've produced and co-produced a lot of Gogol Bordello music, but this is kind of, you know, kind of taking all those insights and skills somewhere else now into helping out other new musical units to kind of making sure that, you know, things are fried properly, as Pedro says.
I love it. Eugene, you know, thank you for coming.
I mean, yes, the first thing that gonna come out this next month is a new band, Puzzle Panther. So that's, I mean, I am also part of the project. I play guitar there. But it's a New York City band with Victoria Espinoza, Kay Bontempo, Alec Reboy, and Brian Chase from Yes is the drummer. So it's a very potent
little super group.
Yeah. Well, I would shy away from calling it supergroup because it's fronted by very young, brave talent from New York. We're sort of guys in overalls who are helping along, making sure it's fried properly.
I love it.
Yeah.
Eugene, thank you. It was a pleasure. Thank you for bringing this here.
Thank you.
And I wish you the best in UK, and I can't wait to see you back in New York. It's always a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.